we're getting it out of, and
but Mike's freaking.
We've taken a ton of stuff off too. Yeah, it happens. But nonetheless, we'll roll with it today. We'll be in their new studio very soon, I think. Right?
We'll find out today, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. No, it'll be good. All right. Let's see here. It's been a minute since we've done one-on-one with Coach Blu, Marissa.
The semi-correct time, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You might want to pull that mic a little closer.
Okay.
There you go. And when we're talking into the sides, it's different than talking into the top like this.
Are you in the top?
Yeah, look at my picture on the screen.
I'm getting onto Facebook.
Oh, you're not even here.
No.
Well, nonetheless, let's jump into it. And there's a little bit of echo. I think it's just because we are draining all of the noise absorbing materials here in the Robinson, I guess, household to maneuver all of our stuff over to the new podcasting station.
Yes.
But
hopefully we'll be there
my
soon.
gosh, it's been 2 months and we're still not in there. It's like, come on, guys, let's get this thing done. Nonetheless, welcome to One-on-One with Coach Blu. It's good to have you guys all here. And it's been a minute since we've done this. Again, there's been so much change and so much going on that we've really had some cool things, I guess, to report to you guys, but still kind of just right there, waiting for the gun to fire to start the race, right?
Yeah.
Nonetheless, if you want to jump on, we'd love to answer any questions you have. You can jump on here, the Zoom link. You can jump on Facebook or YouTube. I think what I should probably do, Marissa, is record this bad boy so that we can post it as a podcast for all those who, unfortunately, don't get to
watch live,
jump in live. Yeah. But nonetheless, Blu Robinson here, head coach of addict to athlete, mental health therapist, addictions counselor. Marissa Robinson, recreational therapist, athletic director. Right?
Yeah. There we go.
Sorry
about that.
See, we get out of the saddle, we forget how to do all this stuff. Okay, back to the grind. Nonetheless, jump on addictoathlete.org if you want more information about what Team Addict to Athlete does. We have our registration open for our proxy run. This is the official Addict to Athlete 5K that we do in September. It's going to be held on Labor Day in Spanish Fork, Utah. It's open for registration, and this proxy run, listeners, it's a big deal. Yeah. There's a lot of emotions that are associated with this. It's a 5K by which you write the name of the person that may have lost their battle to addiction, mental health, maybe suicide, so that you can run proxy for them so that they're not forgotten.
Yeah,
and I think that's a big deal. And it does. It gets quite emotional, doesn't it, Marissa?
Absolutely. And again, you can also run for those who are in recovery, for yourself who's in recovery, for a loved one, but also those who are still struggling or those who have passed on.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of I don't know, it's an emotional thing nonetheless, but really when we get hooked up with families that run together and they all run proxy for that one person, man, that love is very present.
Yeah.
So jump on addictoathlete.org under resources. Actually, it's under the
we have a races tab.
Races tab, yeah. So check it out. It's open for registration. We'd love to get you signed up now so that we know how many shirts we're going to get, because we got a great logo for this year's shirt, and excited.
We also are accepting donations for our silent auction, which is part of this event and a fundraiser. And you can also sign up and create your own fundraising team in the name of your loved one, which is a great way to honor them.
Absolutely. Yeah, our sound is kind of off. I can tell. Can you tell? It's very hollow. And I'm not sure if that's because we've taken so much stuff out of here. So the absorption's gone. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
but hopefully, listeners, this is coming across okay. If it's not, let us know. We'll make some adjustments like we used to do back in the olden days, remember?
Yeah.
Marissa, we've got lots of questions, but one of them has stood out more than others as we've kind of been on this hiatus. Mm-hmm. You want to maybe jump into this first question?
Yeah, the one I had?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So first question is, what do you, as a muggle, which in addict to athlete, that's someone who hasn't struggled with addiction, non-using folk, what do you do when your definition of sobriety is different than a loved one that is or was in recovery? Let's see. One of the back thought, I thought a couple of members of my family have been sober for a while, only to find out they're drinking and using marijuana. One of them was an alcoholic in the past, so I don't feel like they are sober. They seem to think as long as they're not using heroin, their drug of choice, they are okay. It has been really hard seeing them drink. I have a lot of very traumatic memories of their alcohol and drug use. they know how I feel, and they know I'll be there when they need support, but setting boundaries has been difficult.
That is a heavy one. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy one. Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, there's some interesting things going on with, that mindset of sobriety and what's its definition. It's changed, I think, a little bit in the perspective of what the individual's, I guess, able, capable, and willing to do.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of situations by which MAT, that's the medicated assisted therapy, would help. But if you start looking at the personal reasons why, you'll find maybe the reason behind continued use. And the one thing that you have to be absolute 100% in is knowing yourself. And I know a lot of people that will continue to use under the banner of MAT. And that always has a devastating ending because you won't be able to contain it to just that substance. I don't know if it was Demi Lovato or someone coined the term California sober. Mm-hmm. That to me is kind of a sucker punch to the recovery community, because it's like saying that you're going on a diet, but you're going to eat cake every morning for breakfast and then nothing else. It's like, are you
again,
really
I have
living
to fight
healthy?
on the other side. That's yes. Are you really living healthy? But again, it's to each person's definition. Mm-hmm. And this person said that is their definition of sober is seeming to be different from my own.
Then would you classify that as sober if you're using any kind of intoxicant?
Well, let's look up a second.
What because is the definition? I think that there's what's it doing residually? Is it making it harder for you to have a relationship? Because even if you're on MAT and you're taking so much that you're completely checked out and you're not productive and you're not investing in relationships and you're pursuing it and it's taking more time and consuming more of your life, then I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what MAT's designed for.
Yeah. And that's what some of it's going to be is what are the behaviors? So are they still going to work? Are they still having family time? Are they still doing the things that brought them joy, the things that make them who they are and a person, or are they checking out all the time?
If someone's using medical cannabis, we know that they shouldn't be driving. They shouldn't be in public. I mean, do we think that that's a good, healthy thing? Because, hey, we have a birthday party this weekend, but mom and dad are using weed and drinking alcohol. You really want them driving over to hang out at this party? Do you think they even would?
I don't know. It's up to them. And that's this person asking the question. You have to identify those boundaries of what it are some of the difficulties in this, because you're being triggered by the memories of when that drinking was out of control, when their drug use was out of control. Is there substance abuse now? Is the drinking and marijuana use out of control? I don't know.
I think
these are some hard questions that you have to ask. I can understand obviously a fear and a trigger of like, oh no, this is the beginning of them slipping and going back. Is it more of the fear, or are those the behaviors you're seeing?
Well, alcohol is not an MAT approved method of recovery. It's just not.
No, but there is something called the Sinclair effect or Sinclair method, which is about people being able to continue to drink. I guess it's a little different. They use.
So then would you classify yourself as in sobriety if you are using the Sinclair method of drinking alcohol?
Well, if you look at the definition of sober, it's not affected by alcohol, not drunk.
So what does that mean? It means get your buzz on, but be able to function.
Are they doing that or not? I don't know.
I think this is a hard one. Because again,
what is their recovery? Maybe it's recovery is a different term than sober. Sober, is going to be staying away. Well, specifically, it's sober is talking about alcohol only. So, when we talk about that, when people talk about, okay, are we sober, or I'm in recovery, but I take antidepressants. And then other people say, no, you can't take an antidepressant because that doesn't mean you are clean.
Well, let's boil that down even a little bit more then, right? Because an antidepressant isn't going to change or cause euphoria. It won't. So overdosing and taking more medication like that, it's not going to cause the same effect as getting drunk or getting high would.
So the specific key factor
And then you start
here is
looking
going to
at
be
tolerance.
euphoria.
You start looking at tolerance and withdrawal factor, right? You stop taking your antidepressant, you're not going to feel a withdrawal. You probably start feeling crappy and down, but that's not withdrawing from it, right? You also look at
or is it?
Well, you look at tolerance, right? Very rarely do you have to keep increasing heavier doses. Maybe years down the road, not so much. Like if you drink alcohol every day, your tolerance is going to increase pretty quick. So I start looking at this as like, do we completely take the people that are in that category of using MAT out of sober and out of recovery and start calling it maintenance? I'm in maintenance. I mean, think about it for a minute. Maybe we're trying to fit this square peg into that round hole when it's like, maybe we need a new category.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because yes, I understand. Like if you're talking about antidepressants, there's what's the term? Sometimes I can't think. A clinical dosage they're in their medical management of what works for them.
Yeah.
And so, they're going to increase the dose, but it's probably not increasing the dose to get higher, right? It's not.
It's for maintenance.
It's for medical balance for their chemicals in their body and their brain.
And there lies the problem with medical marijuana is how do you properly dose that? Because it depends on what plant species you're using. It depends on how you're using it. You can't really dose yourself correctly. I mean, how do you know? You take a 25 milligram Tylenol, you get 25 milligrams in there. But if you're supposed to smoke like 2 kilograms of weed, how do you know? You can't. And so this is the sticky portions, I think, by which we are starting to trap ourselves. And I don't think maybe it's me. I don't know if it's that appropriate to say sober or recovery when it should be like maintenance
and that's maybe what the key is here is that maybe this person needs to have this conversation with their loved one of what is your definition of sober? What is my definition of sober? And are we on the same page? Or maybe we just need to reterm what you're doing because this is scaring me. I am worried. You haven't been able to control your substance use and substance abuse in the past. What says that you're going to now? And that scares me. And so that's more talking about the feelings and the issues tied to the use rather than just the use, because it is more about that. Like you're saying, why are they've been clean and sober, 0 substances. So why are they using again now? Is it because maybe they need to go to counseling and therapy because there's other issues going on and they're using the substance to deal with it? Or that is their life. That's what they want to choose to do. Like some people choose to drink and they do just fine.
Then they need to be able to be behind that and be okay with the consequences of that action, whether it's positive or negative, right? And I think that's I think you kind of nailed that right there, Marissa. You guys have to understand that substances aren't the problem. It's the residual effect. It's the side effect of the problem. And until you get into the core issue and find out what's going on and solve that, you will use all those coping mechanisms to avoid it. So there's a reason when I start hearing people say, well, they're smoking weed and drinking massive amounts of alcohol or whatever, that tells me that you've got some depression in there. What are we doing to combat the depression? Well, medication doesn't have the euphoria and the fun feeling and the efforts.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's easier to go grab a bottle than it is to take a prescription. It's going to take a few weeks and maybe you'll have to do some adjustments. You have to really focus on what's going to work. But then you have to deal with life on life's terms. When you're drinking, it takes away that pain instantly. It's gone. That anxiety, gone. That depression, soothed.
Yeah. And that's one of those conversations are, you seem like you're kind of depressed and let's discuss that rather than the substance use.
Well, I just did a deep dive on emotional intelligence. And as I was kind of doing the research and doing some stuff, to present that, I started realizing that there's a lot of us out there that do not know how to identify the emotions that we feel. We categorize them into the top 6, which are the happiness, sad, all the basics, right? But very few of us take the deep dive and to find out what's really making us tick, what's really making us angry, what's really making us disappointed, why we're falling short. because you have to focus on yourself, and that kind of hurts. That's kind of scary. But if you don't know yourself, if you are putting this off and postponing it through avoiding it with substances, you're going to miss out on the beauty of life. You're going to forget that one of the reasons I think we're all here on this little ball of mud is to kind of figure out who we are on the grand scale of life. And when we're avoiding it because we've had trauma or pain or discontent, we hide. There's so much world out there, listeners. And, sometimes it probably feels good to relax and to be carefree. But when you make that your everyday and that becomes your normal, you miss out on so many other things. So I think we need to get back to the drawing board and stop trying to pretend like it fits into the recovery model, the sober model. Maybe we create a whole different model. Maybe it's called maintenance. Maybe it's called, fill in the blank. We make up a new word. I don't know.
Maybe let's not even relate it to addiction or anything, and we'll just discuss life. How are you feeling? Or behaviors. You know what? Your behavior is scaring me. I notice when you come over for your grandson's birthday, you're not really here like you used to be. You're not as engaged. You're not involved. And that worries me. Mm-hmm. And that we just address that. And you talk about that.
Let's even break it down from worry. Like it hurts me. Like it's sad. It's disappointing. It's worries, all those things. I think that we got to get very real with what's going on. And there's a lot of anxiety going on in the world right now, and it's easier just to shut it off. But I would not stake your flag too high on that mountain of you're clean and sober and of right mind when you're using that much. I can see maybe one of those, but when you start combining substances, I don't know how appropriate that is. Getting back to the basics, so getting back to the core of what's really going on, what is so hard about life that makes you feel as though you need to check out? What goes through your mind during the day that makes you nervous or gets you worried or concerned that you can't handle this? Mm-hmm. We've all handled some pretty heavy stuff in our past. Why now? Why are we still checking out?
Yeah.
That's a hard one. And I think you're right, Marissa. Maybe we don't talk about that kind of stuff at all. We get into life, like what's going on.
Yeah. Holly has a question to go on here.
Yeah. It's a deep topic, and one that I don't think a lot of people have really researched or even talked about. Maybe breaking new ground here. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see if she can unmute.
There she goes.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So that was my question, and I'm fine, sharing that. But I guess what started the question was when this family member came to a family party under the influence. Mm-hmm. It was like at 5:00. So it wasn't even like at the end of the day. It was kind of just like a dinner party. And so at that party, I was like, oh no, I thought they'd been sober for 5 years, and I had all these like emotions.
Yeah.
And then I went and approached him, and I was like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, I'm just feeling lonely and been having a hard time. And so I talked to them about that. Then later I approached him, and he was just kind of like, well, I've just decided that I'm going to drink. And this other person in my family was like, yeah, and I'm going to, use marijuana every day for the rest of my life. Like, this is what I want. And so it was just kind of hard. Like, from my perspective, I was thinking, well, you're an alcoholic, you have this history, and you're telling me you're using it to cover the emotion of loneliness, but then you're also telling me that it's your choice and that you're going to use it how you want to for your life. So I was just like feeling conflicted. Like, is this just different definitions of sobriety, or should I be worried?
Yeah. Holly, you bring up a very good point. And at that level where that there's a mechanism of emotion that's driving it, that's still addictive behavior. I wouldn't say that's adapting into medicated assisted therapy, because even when you're on MAT, you're working on what's causing the drive to want to use. So you're working on the loneliness. which is sad, right? Because they show up and they're surrounded by people, by family, and they still feel lonely. I would venture that there's something even deeper than loneliness, right? It may be, again, maybe that feeling of abandonment or neglect. And when you start focusing on yourself, on the core issue, see, your core issue is neglect. The opposite of neglect is love, right? I mean, like, if he's not feeling that way, he's going to feel lonely and all those kind of things.
And the perfect opportunity to connect with other people would be a family party like that, but he's still using a substance to deal with maybe what he was feeling last week or yesterday. And now he can't use the perfect opportunity to connect with family because he is using a substance to alter him.
Yeah. And
Right.
the sad thing is too, listeners, is that family is not always going to be the solution, right? I mean, lonely could also be feelings of not accomplishing life's goals and things that he wanted, or those other things too. It could be this hopelessness as well. And so the only way we'll be able to figure out what's really going on is if he gets in and starts doing some heavy emotional work and unpacking some of the stuff he's been carrying. So I think that you are amazing for even asking the hard questions instead of just assuming, because Holly, I'll be honest with you, most people see it and they make up their mind and they write family members off. You took it upon yourself to approach and to find out more.
Because it was very emotionally triggering for you as well. Oftentimes people have that response and then they avoid, or they go back to how they would react to years ago when they were dealing with that abuse, and just avoid or stay away or treat them poorly, or like Blue was saying. But I love how you took the initiative to go and check in and be like, are you doing okay? What's going on? And that's great that he responded with, I am lonely.
Yeah.
That's a perfect start.
That's amazing that he was able to identify that.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
That's really good. But then it's okay, now what do we do from here?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and it's
go ahead.
Well, I just from watching this as a child, I'm not gonna lie, it was my gut reaction to be like, oh, if this is gonna happen, then I can't invite him to my family parties anymore. I can't go and do these things, because that was what I did the first time. That's what felt safe to me. And so I just tried to step out of my comfort zone, because I was like, if I do this,
good for you,
then I'm not gonna be helpful. It's just gonna repeat behaviors.
Holly. My question was going to be for you, can you still love someone that struggles with this? I would say you can, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard, right? But I mean, but here's the thing too, is I think it's changing our own expectations as well. And I'm not saying you should just roll over and just accept it.
Make it okay.
But asking those hard questions like you did, being willing to invest even when they may not want to, respond, if that makes sense.
Or that they're not living the way you would prefer. Because again, we only have the option to control ourselves, right? So you can put it out there and have those conversations and tell him, I really loved how you've been when you've been clean and sober around my family. And give specifics as to why, you're more engaged, you're more aware, and you interact with your grandkids better, or your nieces and nephews, or whatever it is, and give some specifics and say, this is scary for me, and talk about it. But again, if they're okay doing that, then you have to just adjust with what you feel is okay for you to have around yourself and your family.
That's the hard part with the boundaries, is like, it's like, I want to respect them, and like they said, like, this is our decision and this is what we're going to do. And I want to respect that, but it's also hard for me, because it's like, it was like, but I've seen what it has been. Yeah. And so trying to balance where that boundary is, like, is this just, a one, like, where we're having this conversation, is this where it's going to stay? Are you being safe in your perspective? Like, do you feel like it's not going to spiral? But then
is there brain, it's like safe, or are they out drinking and driving, or
right.
Well, I think it it begs the question. It's the same thing that's happened to me with my family. And I've told my family that use and are under the influence that I love them, but I won't have them here. I can't, because it jeopardizes me. It jeopardizes my family. And that sucks. But it's their choice, right? It's like, you can choose to continue to use and to do that. But when you come here, I need you, if you're going to be here, to be sober, to be honest, to be on time, to follow through. And guess how many times my family's been to my house, Holly? 0. And it sucks and it hurts. And when their addictions catch up with them, I'm invited back into their life, and I meet them on a neutral playing ground, hospital, what have you. And little efforts are made, but then they withdraw again. So it boils down again to, like, if there's a mutual respect for you and your family, they have to understand that all that stuff comes at a price as well. And it sucks, and I get it, but it's proof that you're not turning your back on them when you're willing to have those kind of conversations. Yeah. The hardest part about this is going to be, what boundaries you set and which ones you hold. And, again, if a family member called me and they were in dire straits, absolutely, I'd be there 100%. But they also know that their addiction and their drama could potentially tear me down as well. So I have to also protect myself, because it happened just a year and a half ago, where I started getting very invested back into my mother. And I was doing all this stuff for her. And then all of a sudden she disappears after all this hard work I was doing. And I'm like, well, what the heck? So I get how this works. As long as you keep an open heart and you keep a focus like what you did, Holly, I think it's huge that you even confronted them instead of sweeping it under the rug. It shows that you love them. But unfortunately, it's a privilege, not a right, to have a relationship. Yeah. And it sucks because people choose substances over relationships quite a bit. And that's a hard and sad fact.
And I think it's important to be able to adjust and assess as you move forward now, because right now I need a stricter boundary because emotionally I can't handle this. And so, but then maybe later in, check in and be like, okay, I'm okay with this. And I'm okay with you coming over to my house, or, you know what, let's have a talk again about what the lifestyle you're leading. And is that something I'm okay with to have more investment? And maybe it is, maybe it's not. And just being able to adjust as you go, because I wouldn't just put in one dire straight rule, because things change. And, I would avoid concrete things like I will never and you will never. I mean, I don't think that's even in your vocabulary.
No.
But I still think what you did was huge, even by inquiring what the real issue was, because now you can help kind of point out periods of loneliness. Like, it was really sad not having you guys here, or, when we had this experience, we really wish you guys could have been there. You would have loved it. And just showing them that unconditional love as well. And I think you can love people that have addictions. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. There's a line. You don't want to love them to death and enable the behavior, but you also don't want to separate yourself so far that they feel as though you're are high and mighty and more superior. Yeah. I think that you're humble enough, Holly, to walk that line and to invest when you can, and to, withdraw when you need to. Yeah. You've learned that since you were a kid, probably. For sure. And that's why you're one of the newest coaches here on the team. I mean, Coach Davies here. I mean, you get it. So I'm proud of you for even inquiring the question, like, what's going on? And for him to feel safe enough to tell you that he's identified it as loneliness. There's a solution to that. There is. And maybe talking to him about that, like, hey, is there anything myself or the rest of the family can do to help you? Because, we don't want you to feel lonely. And not even addressing the issue of substance use, but how can we help you not feel as lonely? What I've noticed in this too, Holly, is that the reason why people have a hard time getting away from this kind of stuff is because they're afraid they won't be able to feel the same way without it. And you come to one of the meetings at Addict to Athlete, you are family, and the loneliness is gone. But it takes a ton of courage to walk into a situation like that. And so I usually will approach my clients and I'll say, do you want to feel exactly how you feel when you're high, only to do it naturally and to do it genuinely? And at first they don't believe you. They're like, it's impossible, because I can take the substance and I know exactly how it's going to make me feel. But you and I both know what that feels like when you invest in yourself and you cross a finish line, or you meet a new person, or you extend your hand to a relationship and you feel that same euphoria. A lot of the people that are stuck in addiction, they don't know that part of it. They don't realize you can have just as much experience, just as much excitement and euphoria by being sober and doing these things than you can getting high. So it's about, and keep inviting, keep trusting, keep the dialogue going, and show the more excellent way if they're willing to lean into it.
Yeah, it was my gut reaction when it was a family party, and I was like, oh, I recognize his behaviors, and I know they're not normal, and I know like that he's under the influence, and like my gut reaction was to be like, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I was like, this, if I become that person that just cuts everything off, then there's no way that any change can occur. And so
absolutely,
it took a lot for me just to be like, you know what, I noticed this about when you came to my house, like what's going on. And then that started the conversation. And then when they said, you know, this is what we are choosing to do, I was like so conflicted, because I was like, well, in my brain, because of all of the trauma that I had gone through, this can't be sobriety, but to them it was. And so it was just like trying to figure out where I needed to set that boundary and let them know, like, I love you and I'm there for you, but I also need to keep my emotions safe and my family safe, and, you know, break that cycle. I didn't want my kids to, you know, for me, I saw what it was like, you know, when people were drunk or high, and I was like, I want to protect my kids from that if I can.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you know, I just posted a video. It was a little story that Marissa put on TikTok and social media. It was interesting because me and my son Boston went out for this mountain bike ride a couple days ago, and it actually landed on the day that we taught him how to ride a bike. And it was kind of a crazy thing. I thought, look at that, 10 years difference. And I used the term, this is their childhood. And it's so awesome that my son doesn't have to grow up and see his dad stuck in addiction, or all of the promises that were never fulfilled, or the poverty and the scarcity that addiction creates. And because of that, now here he is as a teenager wanting to go mountain biking with his dad. And I'm like, this is their childhood, and that was your childhood. And now you see your children, and this is their childhood. And so I can totally understand that mama bear concept too, of like, you're missing out on some beautiful things. Holly, one of the hardest things for me to wrap my head around is for me to like really comprehend that my family knows nothing about my children. They have no clue who they are, the people they've become, their interests, their humors, they don't know. They don't get it. And it boggles my mind that they chose not to be a part of that because they chose that other path. And it wasn't because we built walls and stuff. It's just we had some non-negotiables. And we had some negotiables. There's plenty of times they've met my kids, but the relationship wasn't there. So I'm proud of you for even questioning that impulse of like, well, it's game over then. That shows me how much willingness you have to like go the extra mile.
That's awesome. Because again, sometimes maybe that's it, is they just need you to reach out and be like, hey, what can I do to help? Or, you know, a time without your kids, have your husband, you know, watch the kids and say, hey, let's go out and go to dinner. Let's go do something. So you can just spend some time with them, not even addressing issues or whatever, but that's you addressing the loneliness issue without having to specifically even come out and talk about it. I know we've had some family issues with things, and, you know, family members come straight to me and want to complain about other family members' behaviors and how they're so negative because they're doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, go spend time with them, go talk to them, instead of going to the other family to complain and say, hey, did you notice so-and-so's doing A, B, and C? Like, go talk to them about it. Why talk to me about it?
Yeah.
You know, go talk to them and tell them how much you love them and you're kind of sad that they're doing that. Or, hey, let's go for a bike ride. Let's go do something, instead of going to someone else to just talk about. And I understand it. because yes, there was other behaviors with another family member that were traumatic. And so they start seeing those same behaviors and think, okay, this is the same thing and it's going to go the same way. And it doesn't have to.
They don't know what
You
to
have
do.
address
They don't
it.
do anything. Yeah.
And so what you did was phenomenal, you know.
And you'll have more opportunities, believe me. It's not over yet, unfortunately, but you've got a good head on your shoulders and your heart's beating strong. So just keep at it. Come to what comes natural now instead of that impulse. I think you'll be okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Coming on.
It does. It brings up a lot of questions about, like, tolerance, what we're willing to tolerate in relationships, what we should be aware of, what we should be concerned of. At the end, everyone's going to make their own choices. And I don't want to be in the business of making other people's choices. I used to do that as a counselor. But back when I first started, I used to try to convince people to be clean because of how great it is and how great my life was. And still is, to that matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how much work does it take to convince someone of something that they're not invested in? Right. And I learned that I'm done convincing people.
Yeah.
They can choose captivity or they can choose freedom. It's totally up to them.
And for me, being able to get to the point that, yeah, some people are going to choose to use some kind of substance the rest of their life.
Yep.
But I'm still okay with that. And I still love and care about them. I'm just going to keep myself in a healthy space if that's what they're doing. Has made it so much easier than trying to rant and rave about how other people should live their life and the appropriate way to be sober, the appropriate way to be in recovery. It doesn't matter. That's not what it's about, you know? And I think a lot of people get on soapboxes saying, I can't believe it, they're doing this. And oh my gosh, do you know that they have clean needle exchanges and they have places that you can use heroin in a safe environment? And oh my gosh, and they just want to rant and rave. What are they doing? They're just giving them drugs just to use? Maybe they are. But it's still up to them. And we want to get them into a safe space until they maybe choose something else. And if it's unsafe, then we make adjustments and set boundaries there. But
it's a hard thing.
We can't force our belief. We can't force our opinions onto other people. And that is so hard to come to. But when you do, your life gets much easier, much less stressful.
So then why do we care? Why do we care? If someone wants to do that, why do we, like my family, if they want to continue to use and be squirrely, why do I care?
Because you love them.
There you go.
And it's also because you see a different way of life and you hope or wish maybe that they could live that same life and engage in something that's happier, that's more authentic.
So much so that I want to force it on them. It doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. And still, even if they become clean and sober or whatever, start living the life you want for them, will they experience it the same way you do? No, there's no way that that's ever possible.
Yeah.
Will they have the exact same authentic emotion connected with life and love? No, you don't know what they're experiencing. So you can't force your belief and your wishes on anyone else.
This is why, Marissa, we were looking through some social media and it's kind of fun. Like in Utah, we have a very broad recovery network. It's something that I think, I say this often, we have to be very, I think we have a lot of gratitude for how much grassroots level programming there is in the state of Utah.
That's awesome.
With Addict to Athlete, we were able to receive grants with amongst other like programs that do similar things and that do completely opposite things.
Other recovery.
But I caught a social media post where the host of this program was saying, stop going to meetings, stop doing 12 steps, stop doing this, stop doing that. You can't say that. And the reason why is because even though I've created a program with Marissa that's completely different, it's just one avenue. The 12 steps still work. And I would be fool to say they don't.
They work for some people.
They work for some people. And if you follow those principles, of the steps, I guarantee you'll be clean. But there's a lot of other roads and pathways.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone.
Never would I get up here and say, never do the steps, never do smart recovery, never do addicts fighting back. I would never say anything like that because there are so many avenues to this. So when we get people that think my way is the only way, that's when we start building these walls that are unwilling to allow people in. Does that make sense? Like so people are going to choose the method of life that they want.
Yeah.
And the only reason it sucks is because we love, like you said.
Yeah. And again, it's just that no one can experience life exactly the way you do. You have your own interests, your own body makeup, chemistry makeup. So it doesn't matter if somebody starts copying everything you're doing that brought you so much joy, and that's what you want to share with them. That's why you want them to be doing the same thing. They could be there and it's nothing like yours.
Exactly.
That joy isn't there. So why do they want to, I have friends that are still fighting for recovery, and they're like, hey, if I don't get happy soon, I'm going to be back using again because this recovery stuff sucks. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it does. And I respect your choices. I mean, I love you. I don't want you to die or, end up in prison or, many other things, but I know that they'll never have my exact life.
Yeah. And would you want them to? I mean, because they have their own, perspectives and experiences that are going to create something else. So I think if we could maybe drill down on that as a nation and a society, we'd be so much better in life. I mean, we can't control what anyone else is doing. In fact, if you think about it, at the root of what the word control authentically is, it doesn't even exist. No one can control us to do anything. It's going to be our choice whether we engage in it or not, right? Yeah. Because it's the love and logic. Either you choose this or you choose that, or I'll choose for you. Those are all still choices, even if several of them suck, right? So if you choose to continue to use, be okay with calling it what it is. It's okay. If you want to continue to use, that's fine. Go ahead. If you want to use MAT and start slowing down so you can get life going again, that's awesome. Go for it. If you want to be 100% sober, fantastic. But the choice is yours. And I think we need to stop taking choice away. I mean, it's happened in our nation, everything. I think
and it's not only substance abuse, it's with everything. Everyone's right now trying to force their opinion upon everyone else, whether it's vax, anti-vax, for the president, against the president, substance use, not so. I mean,
Roe versus Wade,
Wade, religion. That's what this is about, and we can't. And again, the more you try to force that on anyone, the more frustrating your life is going to be. Well, I promise you that.
It's like that with anything, though, right? I mean, choice-based anything, recovery, religion, whatever. It's interesting to see it in the world of religion. When people leave a religion, automatically they switch over to start being anti. It's like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you try to be anti something when someone else is going to love it and someone else is enjoying it, right? Do your life. You do you. I think that if we could do more of that, we'd have more of a buy-in when people are ready to invest, right?
I mean, this is an issue we had last night with our daughter. She has a really good friend who's been in a relationship with someone that she doesn't think is healthy and good for her. And so she's been up on the phone every night when this friend calls and complains about this poor, relationship they have. And she listens, and she's loving and comforting. And then she finally talked to her the other day, and the friend's like, I'm done. I'm going to break up with him. This is toxic. It's unhealthy. And then within 24 hours, she was back together with him. And our daughter freaked. She's choosing him over me, and she's not listening to me, and I know better. Yeah, maybe you do, but that's her choice.
Your choice.
And how much do you want to be her friend, and how supportive do you want to be? It's too hard. Then you set a boundary and you say, I can't be here to talk to you every night when you're complaining about how bad your relationship is. If you're just going to choose to be with him, that's too hard on me, and I need some distance from that.
Yep.
I love you and I'm here for you, but if you're just going to stay with him after we've talked through this, then I can't talk to you every night. It's too draining on me.
Yeah.
And that's the boundary. Is we talked to her about setting that boundary to keep her safe, because that's what boundaries are. They're not there to keep the other person safe and to keep them in a certain box. It's to keep yourself safe.
I think people forget that.
What are you willing to do and what do you not?
I think people forget that boundaries aren't for the other person. They're for you.
Yeah. It's for what you can handle and what keeps you in a safe space or ability to do what you need to do. It's not to control someone else and to put them in, the box you want them to do.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, you think about that for a moment, just in our personal lives. I mean, we have this person out there that's really trying to make addict athletes' life rough because we set some boundaries
Mhm.
and we don't engage with this individual. And so he keeps trying to double down and triple down. It's like, he doesn't realize that we're not engaging on purpose because that's our boundary. And although he's going to keep crossing that boundary, we're not going to go where he wants us to go. Does that make sense?
You keep setting.
So listeners, that's a big one, right? I mean, that's why I asked the question, can you still love someone that's an addict? Yeah, you can. And there will be boundaries, that you'll have to set up, and they'll be really hard when they get pushed. Like Holly said, like her boundary got pushed and she questioned it. First she reacted to it, and then she questioned it, and then she eloquently started to solve it. So I think that's kind of the answer to the final there. Marissa, unless we have anyone else, we're kind of getting close.
Yeah.
Okay. Athletes, thank you for joining us today on One with Coach Blu. We are getting back in the saddle. As you can see, we're kind of under construction, but we'll still give this to you because we've been getting a lot of feedback from people that have missed it. So we'll be posting this as a podcast coming up tomorrow. So if you've missed this, share this with anyone that may be struggling or may have a question about the topic today. Thank you, Holly, for being vulnerable. Coach Holly Davies, I should say.
Yes.
She's one of our newest certified recovery coaches, a team addict athlete. And so she'll be, think about that, listeners. Grab a hold of Holly. She's available for that kind of stuff too, to be able to chat with you about the things that she's worked with, her understanding.
Yeah.
One of our,
and being a child of an addict and raised in
Mhm.
like that.
So I think she's very valuable to our team here on Addict to Athlete as one of our coaches. So check that out. If you want to become a recovery coach yourself, jump on addicttoathlete.org under the resources tab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can find the links to be able to, be under our umbrella there too. So until next time, please continue to turn that mess of addiction into the message of sobriety.